glad to be on. Oh, you meant me to sing it?
Okay, everyone.
That was pretty good.
Welcome to the AfterWord. As you heard, this is a special edition Olympic version of the AfterWord. Today, we are joined by a special guest who I will get to in a moment. But as usual, we have
normal, boring guests.
We have Kirsten Black, Vince Black, and me, Betty. And our special guest I'll just allow him to introduce himself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, too. An interesting fact, perhaps.
State your full name.
Oh, yeah. Do they need my name?
Full name.
Austin Boone. Happy to be here.
Full name.
Austin Daniel Boone.
Oh.
Happy to be here.
Daniel Boone?
Uh-huh.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I
was
got
that
a
on
lot
purpose?
growing up.
Was that like...
almost certainly.
Okay. I didn't know if like Daniel was a family name or something.
No.
I love this about you.
Yeah.
We could just hit stop now.
Yeah, there you go. I think everyone with the last name Boone at some point claims they're related to Daniel Boone. I think we are. Couldn't tell you.
Of course you are.
You need to do like a genealogy thing.
Yeah, we probably should. We'll get
All right,
there.
so your interesting fact is that Daniel Boone was your uncle.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Do we stick with that one?
Yeah.
Do I need another one?
What do you do? Well, tell us about you.
I do IT work for the university, Colorado State. Didn't plan on doing that, just fell into it after graduation. And yeah.
How long have you been at the church?
I was trying to do the math. I think in October it'll be 8 years.
Are you serious?
So yeah, that's a quarter of my life, easy. 8 years.
That's amazing.
Nice, yeah.
That's great.
It's gone quick.
You have been a significant part of our church too. You have helped with children's and youth, and
they keep me with the kids.
Yeah.
Maturity levels.
Well, and you started out as a college student, right?
Yeah.
And then stuck around after college, which is amazing. So I don't know. I've been encouraged watching you and just knowing that you've been here and you've been faithful. You know, a lot of times college students connect to maybe campus ministries, but not to local churches. And so it was just encouraging watching you connect to a church and then stick around. So
this is an encouraging start. This is good.
Should we stop now?
Yeah, we should stop. It'll save me for when I say all the wrong things later on, right?
No. All right. Betty is editing on the fly here.
Yeah.
Too loud.
Adjusting our volumes.
Too loud.
Did you have another interesting fact that you were going to share?
Yeah, you were going to
share.
Yes,
I was prepped. I bought a motorcycle just about, what was last September? It was like a year ago. Now I'm the proud owner of a motorcycle.
Do you ride it?
I do. Well, here's a tip. Don't buy a motorcycle right before winter. You have to winterize it. You don't get to use it at all. So this summer I've taken it out a little bit. Yeah.
Please tell me it's one of the ones with like the giant handlebars that are like way up above your head.
Yeah. Picture it, whatever's coolest in your mind.
That's not coolest, but I just feel like that's what you need to ride.
Good, yeah. With your feet sticking way out too, above the handlebars sometimes.
All right.
Do you wear full leather when you ride it?
Stuff's expensive. I'm happy I've got a helmet. My mom's happy I've got a helmet.
I'm going to ask the question again because I didn't get an answer. Do you wear full leather when you...
No.
Okay.
No, we might get to that point though.
Okay. Good.
It's
I want to see that. I
want
to see you walk in on a Sunday in full leather.
Okay. No, I'm subtle about it.
I think what we're hearing is we're taking donations for
Austin's leather.
His leather riding costume.
That's great. Austin Safety Fund. I said I was trying to make money off being here. So
here we are.
Do you have a sidecar?
Oh man, do I need one? Max has Maggie. I'd love to take.
With the goggles?
With the goggles would just be the coolest.
Wow, we're also raising funds for that too. Austin's safety gear and sidecar.
Maggie's sidecar.
For the dog.
Let's just because we're now into 4 or 5 minutes of talking about this, which is great. We have to be reminded that we're doing something to get under Eric's skin while he's away.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Has anyone seen Lisa this week?
I haven't seen Lisa.
That's right.
Yeah.
I did have a dream the other night that I was somewhere with Lisa and Mira, the Reeves daughter. She was not thrilled that I was calling. She kept telling me her dog's name was Copper, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I felt like a little bit like a bully because I'm like, here's a little girl, and I'm renaming her dog.
I think that's God speaking to you.
Maybe that's the conviction of the Spirit.
It's a vision.
That's right.
I don't know. We'll see if other people have the dream, and then we'll go.
Should we jump in?
Yeah, let's jump in. Today's intro question is
Olympic version
of the podcast. If you could be in any Olympic event, what would it be? This question was submitted by Kirsten, so I really hope she has an answer.
Right. Yeah, you've thought about. Wait, can I ask one question?
Yeah, with some clarifying.
Is it I am talented enough in that event to be a part of it, or is it as is I'm thrown into the event?
Oh, yes.
That's a great question.
I'll do both.
It's yes.
Awesome, amazing.
Why don't you go first?
Yeah. All right. As is. Oh man, do you choose the fun one? Even if you're horrible at it. I thought as is current talent level, I want to be in the air rifle one because I thought I'm not a good swimmer. I'm not gonna run. Nothing too hard, but I could aim a rifle.
Have you seen those guns though?
No,
they're like machines. It's like all this apparatus on there.
Shoot, I wouldn't know how to use it.
Yeah.
And
That'd
you have
be
to wear an
embarrassing.
eye patch. How do you look in an eye patch?
Amazing. I've always thought a pirate was my go-to. I've always thought.
Okay,
All right,
so that's
so
that.
Talent. If you have talent.
If I could be talented enough to play any of them, I'm gonna go with gymnastics. Can I do gymnastics?
The ribbon.
Which
You
one?
would totally
which
do
event?
the rhythmic gymnastics, weren't you?
Do the men do the rhythm one?
Which
No.
one? Which event?
Can I be a special?
The rings.
Yeah, the
You
rings.
got the
Well,
traps
I kind
that
of think
are-
I need to be on the rings because the legs. If you do the bars, your legs would hit the bars, and I don't want to be flipping around. I'm sticking with the rings. That
Right.
stuff's cool. Or trampoline if they have it.
They do have trampolines.
Nice
Really?
trampoline.
I
They
think
do?
so. I think I saw
Mhm.
somebody injured on the trampoline.
Mhm.
I would probably go swimming just because it's my favorite
both
event.
answers?
Maybe.
skill level?
Well, current skill level, man, that would be
It's
that would be
hard.
embarrassing. I mean, I did swim competitively for a lot of years, but
I'm not saying you're this person, but I saw yesterday a 55-year-old table tennis
yeah,
woman.
I saw her.
Yeah.
I saw her.
Amazing.
So-
Yeah, table tennis doesn't draw me.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, talent-wise, if I was talented, it would be swimming. With current skill level, I don't know that I could compete in anything with my current skill level. I feel like I could pass the torch to Snoop. Like I would probably
that'd be cool.
excel at that.
That'd be
You'd have
cool.
to buy gold Skechers.
Oh, I already have them.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to do swimming so you can be the person with like 30 gold medals because they have all the different events?
No, I don't think so. It's what's familiar, and
Okay.
I don't tend to break anything out of the mold.
If you did swimming, I would like to be the cheerer for that because you get to cheer half the time. You only cheer when they come up. Yeah.
What about you, Betty?
Oh no, it's Vince's turn.
I haven't thought about it yet.
You've had a whole day to think about it.
Current skill level, it would have to be something that required almost no skill. That's why I was thinking maybe table tennis.
It'd be a fun one.
I think it would be.
Choose a fun one.
There's no way you could even return a serve of one of the professional
Okay, so help me then. Name the sport that I could do.
tetherball.
Break.
What if there was Olympic
Breaking.
tetherball?
Maybe.
Skateboarding.
Skateboarding?
What about run? Is there like a long
Running.
distance?
Yeah, but
running?
current skill level? I
Well-
would be...
It sounds like you're better at that than table tennis.
No, I'm good at... I won the 9th grade PE ping pong tournament
Nice.
against my coach, Coach Riney, and he was really small, so we called him Tiny Riney. Not to his face, but...
All right. What
Ninth
about
grade.
dreaming?
Running.
Running.
Of some
Okay.
sort
No
of long
surprise there.
distance.
All right, Betty.
Current skill level, breakdancing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Please do. Please
Um,
do.
Does that mean we get to see you breakdance after this?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Spinning on your
Tune
head.
in. Look at the comments on the podcast after this. There'll be a link to a video where you can
Catch
watch
the
Betty.
visual podcast.
Yeah, I'm not going to put that in the description. Dreaming. Well, I've been reading The Boys in the Boat recently. So rowing, because that sounds like
That'd be fun.
so cool.
So cool.
Have you watched the movie?
I watched
That's
it
a
on
good
the
movie.
plane.
Yeah.
Oh man, can I change to fencing? If I was good, how
Which
cool?
one?
How
Which
cool
one?
is
The
fencing?
one that you have current skill in, or the one?
Both. Throw me out there. Just give me the sword.
The sword.
Oh,
Do you
man.
like how we're stalling because
We
we
need
don't
a
want to get into the
recap.
topic?
We
of
need a
our-
recap.
Well, this is what's gonna make Eric angry is the fact that we're 10 minutes in and haven't
Haven't
started.
It's our weekly
All
rebellion.
right. Here's the recap. The point of our doing this is to help our church understand the text hopefully a little bit better, and also see some ways that we can apply the text that's here. So hopefully this conversation is helpful. It's at least an ongoing part of the conversation. So there we go. Here's the recap. We're told of several different family members of David. Absalom and Tamar are a brother and sister from one wife. Amnon is another brother from another wife. You begin to see the decline of the family system because of multiple wives. Amnon is infatuated with his half-sister Tamar, and so his horrible friend helps him set up a plan to physically be with Tamar by faking an illness so that she would come and take care of him. And he pulls her into assaulting her. And so he does that, and then we're told that he hates her and sends her away. She is clearly, obviously, shamed by this and knows the consequences of it and the effects of it, and is grieving as she's sent away. Absalom, her brother, takes her in. She lives with him for a time. Her dad, David, finds out. He grieves, but that's about all we hear of David in this, that he grieves but doesn't do a whole lot about it. Absalom seeks revenge on Amnon, sets up a plan to murder his brother Amnon in revenge 2 years later. Does so. Word gets back to David. Absalom, in fear, flees and runs off to Geshur, where his grandparents live, in hiding. And so Joab, David's friend, comes along and sends a woman from Tekoa to tell an elaborate story to David to help him understand what's going on, that he has sent his son away, shunned his son and sent him away, abandoned him. The woman tells him this story to get David to hear it. David understands. Has Joab put you up to this? She agrees that that's the fact. So David agrees to bring Absalom back to Jerusalem, and he comes back, but David still doesn't want to be with him. The relational trauma is still there, that Absalom has killed David's other son, Amnon. So 2 years he's living in his own house, and Absalom he desires to be near his dad. So he gets Joab's attention by burning his fields, and finally, end of the story, quick story, is that David brings Absalom back into Jerusalem, probably to live in the house again. So that's the story. It's a twisted web of relational conflict, abuse, trauma, strife, all the way through. There's the recap.
Thanks, Vince. One thing that, I don't know, just maybe to start with, that you were bringing up before we started, Kirsten, was just that we see that a lot of this is very much tied to David's own struggle, battle, just prolonged sexual sin in his own life, and then how we see the ripple effects of that. And one thing you pointed out was that just sin, when unaddressed as it is in David's life, just doesn't disappear and get smaller on its own. So I was wondering if we wanted to just touch on that a little bit, or maybe expand on that some too.
Sure. I mean, what I was pointing out as we were talking before the podcast was just that you can see that David never took control of his passions. And we see that through the fact that he had multiple wives. He took Bathsheba to the point that he murdered her husband. And so he had this unbridled sexual drive and desire, and he never took control of it, and so it took control of him. And so I think what we can maybe draw from that is that, like you said, Betty, sin is not going to go away on its own, and it actually begins to spin out of control, and it will master us if we don't master it. And so I think we can see a great example of that with David. And then even as we look at Amnon, we see Exodus 20 verse 5 coming to fruition, that the sins of the parents extend to the second and third generation. Like Amnon repeated his father's sins, and so he saw his dad have all of this lust and sexual sin that he didn't master. And so then that extended into the family.
I think something I see in it over the last 2 weeks in these, 4 chapters, this just hit me, this came to mind, that there's the casual nature of what they experience. Like even David's sin with Bathsheba, the way that we read it, it almost feels casual. Like one day he happened to be on the roof and this is what happened, and so this is what he did. It just feels casual. This is what he's gotten himself into, this sort of state, because he now has multiple wives. He can do whatever he wants with anybody he wants. And so it's just become a casual piece of his life, which I think we see that passed into his children as well, where it's in some ways it feels like a no-brainer to Amnon that I'm infatuated with my half-sister. Let's figure out what to do with that. Not I'm infatuated with my half-sister. How do I resist this temptation and flee from it? But it's a casual, this is where I am. This is what I've been brought up in. This is who we are. And I think that speaks to our own sinful leanings, that we just get in places of the casual nature of the sin we enjoy or have become used to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, similar-ish to that, just maybe thinking of like the casual nature of things. I was listening to something and it was pointing out how in just generally, like speaking generally here, like heavier topics in scripture are often things that we see portrayed in media and entertainment. So I think that even like causes us to just view them as we're reading it like pretty casually too, because it's just like another thing that's utilized for entertainment for us. So also just how can we not view those things casually as readers, but then also what you were saying, the sin in our own lives.
Yeah, I think that you're right, Betty. That's helpful to understand that we may have in 2024 have been programmed to read it casually because of what we're in. So it's not shocking, really, to us, or not as shocking as it ought to be because of the world we live in. So in some ways, even my statement points out the casual nature of where we currently are.
Austin, you were sharing that a big takeaway from this passage had to do with just the scope of sin and its consequences. Do you want to maybe share what that was, and then we can get into a practical question with that?
Yeah. Just while I was reading these 2 chapters and listening to Vince's sermon, I was struck. I think this passage, as brutal as it is, does a good job showing the effects of sin. I mean, you see it twofold. You see the effects of David's sin with Bathsheba. It extends to his kids and the sword being a part of their household for the rest of his life. But then you see it with Amnon too. I mean, Tamar does a great job just spelling out what are the effects of this sin going to be. She'll be disgraced. There'll be anger in the family. And I think while I was reading this, it just struck me that this isn't a one-time thing that then goes away, but Tamar, for the rest of her life, will have this pain with her too, and that, I mean, she says, she's a princess, she's of royalty. People are going to know what he did, people are going to know about her, and that'll affect later on with her marriage and life and kids, and I'm sure it sticks with her. So I appreciated that it didn't gloss over that this is going to be a thing that affects not only the perpetrator, the victim, but the entire family for years and years. And it was a little convicting to me, because I thought, at least as far as my sin, I think one of the first temptations is, a little lie here, I look at something there, it's only going to affect me. There won't be pain. But I was convicted to wonder, if I thought about the after effects of what I did, would I be less likely to sin?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard before that sin is always communal. We have these sins that maybe we do in private or that we don't think affect other people. And yet sin is always communal. So the effects of sin, there's never going to be a sin that affects only you, that it's always going to affect somebody else in some way or another. And so, the sin with Amnon was obvious. It was huge. It was, it was clear how that would affect Tamar and how would it affect the family line. And so I think it's easy to look at big examples like this and think, well, of course, that's a really easy example, that it's obvious how that would affect other people. But when we kind of boil it down to the things that we consider small sins or not noticeable, or maybe things that happen in private, we think, well, this is going to affect other people. This is just me. But that's a lie from the enemy. The enemy wants us to think that the things that we do, the choices that we make, are only going to affect us. But that's impossible. And so sin is always communal.
Yeah, I wonder what could have happened had there been some understanding of that for Amnon, for even Absalom after the fact, that revenge wouldn't be there, and on, all the ripple effects of the sin there, if they had that conviction or followed after that conviction of there are effects of this. Where does that go? A question we were talking through earlier is, what would redemption look like in this? What does it look like for this entire situation to be redeemed, to be changed and renewed?
Yeah, I don't know that we can. There's no way we could know that, but I think redemption would have to involve everyone that was involved in this. So it's not just redemption for Tamar, but it's redemption for Amnon too, because as the perpetrator, he will be carrying the guilt of what he did for the rest of his life. And it seems like Amnon's got a pretty hard heart, but for maybe someone else that was in a situation where maybe they did something that they deeply regret, now they carry that for the rest of their lives. And so I think redemption has got to be, first of all, confession and repentance, and then fighting to believe that God's grace is enough to cover that. And it's not just a one-time event, but it's a going back over and over and over again, and fighting to believe, no, I've been forgiven for that. I've been forgiven for that, and God forgives me. And obviously Amnon going to Tamar and asking for forgiveness for that.
I would say redemption goes back even further than that, to David and to the choices he made. I mean, he had to have known, he knew that the law of God stated that the king was to have one wife. He had multiple wives before even the incident with Bathsheba, so he's gotten to this place of being numb to all of that, and then the effects of that. So, I mean, redemption has to go back beyond Amnon and Tamar as well.
Yeah, and maybe just a little parenting encouragement for the listener who might be a parent. Taking time to confess your sin to your children is powerful. I think often as a parent, it's easy to believe the lie that we need to have it all together, that we need to be the examples for our children. And when we mess up, we need to try to make it right. And I think the best thing as a parent that you can do is confessing your sin to your children when you've sinned against them, obviously with what they're able to handle. But when you have sinned against your child, or when you've had a pattern of sin in your life and God brings that to mind or helps you understand that, going to your children and telling them, I didn't recognize or realize how serious this was in my life, or I've now realized that I've had this sin and I've sinned against you, I've sinned against my family, I've sinned against God, and I've asked God to forgive me, and I'm asking you to forgive me. Because I think what our children will learn from that is that their parents need a savior as much as they do, and that's what we want to teach our children. And so I think the power of redemption, like you said, Vince, had David gone to his children and said, I should not have had all these wives. I absolutely should not have taken Bathsheba. This was wrong. I've asked God to forgive me. I need to ask you all to forgive me because I've led sinfully in this. Like, there would have been a completely different story, I think.
I think that's really good. Well, while you were speaking, I had this thought. I know that David seems hesitant to discipline his kids, and so I had assumed that a lot of their attitude was from lack of David's discipline. But you mentioning confession makes me wonder if there was a lack of them seeing David confess as well, and so that led them to a place of not feeling the need to confess either.
Yeah, it's interesting to think through. Like, I wonder when he wrote the Psalms he wrote. Did the kids know? Did Amnon know? Like, I should pull out some of Dad's old journals and see some of these things he's written down.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. This is a question we didn't talk about it beforehand, but
I know
we're
go off
going
the rails.
Off the
I'm
book.
ready to stop recording.
This is when I lose my spot on the podcast. No, David, when he's younger, there's such a hesitance and a resistance to sin. I mean, even Saul's cloak, he's convicted that he cuts off Saul's cloak. But as he gets older, we see less and less of that. I mean, there's repentance after Bathsheba, but then through the rest of this, I don't know that we see much at all. Do you think just the longer you're a Christian, there we can become a what's the word? You get used to grace, or you diminish the power of sin so much that it doesn't seem like a big deal to you?
I think that can happen. I mean, I think that we've probably all seen people that as they get older, they become more soft and more tender and more godly. And then we also see people as they get older, they get maybe more set in their ways and more isolated and harder to be around. And so I think that as we age and as we get older, there really needs to be intentionality of pressing into Jesus and pressing into community and purposely fighting to remain soft and tender, rather than allowing age to be an excuse for becoming crusty.
Yeah. It is interesting. I wonder with David how much of this is all speculation. I'm about to start thinking out loud here. But I wonder how much of the promises of God that his throne would reign forever got into his heart and mind, that he just began to take these things for granted, that he just began to think, well, God's already promised that my line would reign forever. So how am I going to screw this up? So I don't know, again, speculation, but you have to wonder how much of this is he's just gotten casual and numb to what a godly life looks like. I don't know.
I wonder too, along those lines, and probably saying the same thing in a different way, but I wonder if it was that for the first 20 years. I mean, David was anointed when he was very young, and then it was 20 years at least before he took the throne. And those 20 years were him facing trial after trial after trial. And so I wonder if there was a piece of him that felt like he needed to fight for that throne, and he needed to fight for his righteousness, and he knew that he wanted to be a man that pleased God. And then once God gave him the throne, kind of the lack of trial there for a while, and the lack of suffering and the ease that came with it also caused him to let his guard down and caused him to kind of fall into the ease of life. And so there wasn't this, he saw the promise fulfilled, and so, or a piece of it fulfilled. So there wasn't this need to fight for it anymore.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I mean, he's working towards, he knows one day he's going to be king. And then even after he becomes king, it kind of reminds me of the Bathsheba story, in that when he wasn't out at war, that's when the sin happened. And now he's king. He's learned, has he learned yet? When's the temple story come in? When he...
It's coming.
No, we're ahead. Okay, but he lacks vision and purpose, and he just gets complacent about it. And you sort of wish he'd just had this motivation of, well, maybe my end purpose can be raising my kids well as I go out. How different it would have been.
Yeah, and his complacency also just results in, one, like the lack of discipline with his kids, but we also saw that when Joab murdered Abner too. Like, he didn't do anything about it. So this is like a continual pattern, not just like as a parent, but as like a king in general.
A coward to make hard decisions that he knows are the right ones. Yeah.
I wonder too, the complete speculation,
That's what this is all about.
I know,
We're
right?
Change the name of the podcast from AfterWord to
Speculation. Word. I wonder if when God said you can't build the temple because you've been a man of war, if there was some kind of like disappointment or if that stung. And I wonder if, I think sometimes when we're convicted of something, the pendulum tends to swing too far. And so there was a lack of courage, there was cowardice. And I also wonder if there was this sense of, well, I don't want to be a man of war because God's not letting me build the temple because of that. So I'm going to just overlook everything. I don't know.
One big point that you brought up yesterday, Vince, was just the discernment in who we're surrounding ourselves with and how the people that we surround ourselves with do have a great influence on our lives. One question you asked earlier, Austin, was what we do when we see that the people we're with may not be an encouragement in pointing us in the right direction, how to exit those relationships and seek out new ones. But then maybe a thing to add on to that is how to help encourage others to maybe do so if you see, whether it's your child or a friend of yours or someone that you may be leading, surrounding themselves with people who may not be a good influence, and how to steer them well and walk with them in that.
Yeah, I'll add the context, and then I'd love to hear, Austin, you're about to say something. The context is that Amnon longed to be with his sister. His friend Jonadab steps in and says, okay, let's figure this out. Certainly that was not a shock to Amnon. Meaning, like, I'm sure that Jonadab had shown himself to be the kind of guy. We're told he was crafty. He makes this crafty decision. So certainly Amnon knew this about him, which probably says Amnon had started to lean in that direction. We see that he was tormented with this infatuation over his sister to the point where he was ill, and Jonadab gives him the license to go for it, which just shows that circle around him.
Yeah, and this stuck out to me when you mentioned that point, because having been in college and then now been in the working world for a bit, you notice this distinction that once you're working all week, it can be hard to meet new people, to have the energy, or just know where to find other folks. So yeah, real practical question of where do you go looking? How do you find a new group of friends?
Oh, so you're not answering. You're actually asking a follow-up.
Yeah. Well, it's safe. I can just dodge having to give an answer.
That's a great question. Here's a follow-up question to your question.
What have you done?
Oh, turns it back on the questioner.
How the tables have turned.
The turntables have turned.
Now I have to think. This is a given in most cases, but especially when you don't see where other friends could come from, maybe, just church demographics or the areas you're in. Prayer is a big one. I mean, God can bring friends out of nowhere for you. So of course, pray. And then, gosh, in my life, I've been blessed to have great friendships, and a lot of those came from try and go to church events, be involved in a church. You'll meet all sorts of folks, especially ones not your age. That's where you can find, Lord willing, godly mentors who can give you that advice, who aren't in your peer group. And then, outside of church and ministry, I'm at a loss. I'm not one to naturally go out of my way and join clubs and find folks. So
here's something that I have that's helpful, Austin. Something I've realized when you talk about the church is we often circle ourselves with people who are like us, or who we like. For either they're like us or we like something about them, so we want to be around them. The church doesn't always or often provide that. The church is a mixture of really strange people, me and you and all of us being those people. But they're probably not the people we would normally say, oh, this is my group, but they're there for a reason. And often the people we would say, this is my group, we may want to think more diligently about. And so I think we've walked through this a little bit with our boys as they gravitate toward people who they like, have common interests with, but that doesn't mean they have common moral standings or values. It means that they have common interests. The church provides, hopefully, some common values and common morals. It doesn't always provide the interests, and that can be tricky. And so without the right kind of patience and prayer, it's not always the group we run to. So that can be hard.
Yeah, I love that you started with prayer, Austin, because I do think that's
he's just trying to win a spot back on me.
I'm trying to repeat.
I do think prayer is the place to start. If you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling like there's not that connection through your local church body, and you're struggling to find that, like, prayer is the best place to start. And it's where we started with our kids. Like, we've had several different situations with different boys of ours that have been friends with guys that are just not great influences, or people that are not the type of people that I think are going to lead them towards the Lord. And so I think as a parent, having those conversations with your kid, and I remember with one of our boys just asking this person, like, is this person a good friend? And so we talked through some different situations, and my son was talking about how, this friend was encouraging him to go against what, teachers have asked of him. And I said, is that a good friend? He's like, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, your friend is asking you to sin. So anybody who's asking you to sin is not a good friend to you. And so even having those conversations with kids, praying about it with them and asking the Lord to bring them friends that would help walk them to Jesus. I always think of the story, I think it's in Mark 2, where the three friends carried the paralytic to Jesus at the house. And they didn't just drop the paralytic at the door, like, they carried him. They saw the house was too packed, so they went up on the roof, and then they cut a hole in the roof and lowered their friend down. And I use that example with my boys all the time. Like, those are the type of friends that you need. Like, you need friends that are going to carry you to Jesus, even when it's inconvenient. And if they can't quite get you there, they're going to cut a hole in the roof and lower you down. Like, and that's the type of friend you need to be as well. And so just giving handholds for our kids to know what type of people to be looking for in their lives.
I think that brings up a really good point, that yes, pray, but then be willing to be humble as far as who God brings you. Because Vince, like you said, I think our friends tend to look like us, but then I think we also have a tendency to not just make friends with people with similar interests, but people we think are cool too, or we want to be like. And if you had to choose between the cool friend who's leading you into sin, or someone a little less cool, but they're going to care for you and lead you in a godly way, I think you have to be willing to accept that too.
That's helpful.
Yeah. I think something we've not because we've tried to intentionally do this, but we've glossed over the heaviness of these chapters. Not intentionally, but it's hard to push into that some. But these are real things. They're hard issues to sort through. The assault of anyone, let alone a family member, is not something to just gloss over. These are heavy things. Then there's murder, which the taking of a life. I think we read through it and we just think, oh yeah, he murdered someone, but this is a taking of a life. Then the abandonment of a father and a son and pushing him out. There's a lot of heavy things in here that I'm sure hit heavily for different people in our own church family. So we don't want to gloss over that. We want to recognize that. As I worked through these chapters and saw the heaviness of it, one thing that stood out as I was studying that I think is helpful to think through is that the hero in these chapters, but the heroes in these chapters are women who are godly women. We see Tamar when she's been propositioned by her half-brother. She says in verse 12 of chapter 13, says, she answered him, no, my brother, do not violate me, for such a thing is not done in Israel. Do not do this outrageous thing. As for me, where could I carry my shame? And as for you, you would be as one of the outrageous fools in Israel. Israel, she's not talking about the region. She's actually saying this thing is not done among the people of God, among those who are worshiping God. So she's trying to point Amnon back to God and what is appropriate to God. So even in the trauma of what she's facing, she remembers God. And likewise in chapter 14, even in the trauma of this made-up story for this woman of Tekoa, she's pointing back to God. She's pointing David to remember what God has called him to not abandon his son, to be the kind of king that God has called him to. So these women in these really hard things shine. I want to point that out because I want us to see these kinds of things in Scripture as we work through it. But the heaviness of this sits on us. Do you all have any words there that come to mind for with that in mind?
I mean, it was a really heavy 2 chapters to go through this past Sunday, and you could almost feel the suffering in the room because there were men and women in the room who have experienced some of these things firsthand.
Yeah.
And so I think as you were talking, Vince, the only thing that came to mind is I don't know that Tamar would ever understand this side of heaven, why things happened and where God was in the midst of all of that. I'm certain he probably felt absent to her. And yet what I see is that the way that she handled herself and the way that she spoke to her brother and even the way that she handled her grief afterwards had to be pleasing and honoring to God. And so it was something that it didn't destroy her. It caused her, it changed her life dramatically. And yet somehow in all of that, God helped her to handle it in a way that was pleasing to him. And so I don't know that there's necessarily comfort in that, but there is the story of seeing that there are people who go through horrendous suffering, and yet somehow through God's Spirit or God's power, he's able to help them to remain faithful, so that one day in heaven they will see redemption for what has happened.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's why I was trying to keep pushing back to that passage in 2 Corinthians that these afflictions are preparing us for something that we can't comprehend. The weight of these chapters, while we would say, I mean, the easy answer of, well, God's in it, is not a comfort to the person who's walking through it necessarily. So to step back further and just to say, I have no idea what's going on here, and I don't have answers for this, but I do know that this is, whatever this is preparing me for something that's beyond comparison.
Yeah, and I think it's in the midst of it, trying to fight for the belief of, I don't understand how, but this is all going to be worth it. So God, help me to remain faithful.
Yeah.
And just keep, even if it's a mantra, this is all going to be worth it, but help me to remain faithful. Because there's pieces of heaven and eternity and God's promises that we just don't understand. And so fighting for belief and knowing that God is going to bring redemption in all of these pieces. And I think the harder the struggle, the greater the glory that we're going to see one day. And it's something that we don't understand right now.
Yeah, I feel the weight of these chapters. I mean, the few times reading it, listening to this sermon, you read through it and it's hard not to get angry or sad or despair. I read chapters like this and you almost feel hopeless because you see the sin of the world and the sin in yourself and think everything's broken. Where is God in this? And I agree with Kirsten, just that the longer I'm a Christian, the more I'm convinced that it's a fight to see God's goodness in the situations. And I was encouraged, Vince, while you were speaking, you hear Absalom's response to Tamar, and just the worst. It glosses over things. It skips past it. He's got his own selfish motives.
Yeah.
And I thought of Hagar back in Genesis and God going out and meeting with her, and then Mary in the New Testament and Mary Magdalene. And it gave me hope that Absalom might breeze over this stuff, but God sees that pain and he cares to meet people in the hurt. And even as a guy, that God has a tender spot for my sisters and he won't let this stuff go unpunished. I think there's encouragement in there.
That's good. We're gonna talk about this later, but I'll just mention it here. We recognize that there are probably people in our church, maybe even people who are listening, who have walked through really hard things, that these chapters can be a trigger to a lot of trauma in their life. And we don't want to gloss over that. That is not our hope or desire. We want to recognize that what you are walking through is extremely painful. And while we may not be the best resources, at least personally, the four of us, we do know that there are resources, and we'd love to help get you to resources if that's needed. I think of all these, there are these sins that we have either experienced as the sinner or as the one who is sinned against, that can be taboo in the church, and those things can be hard to see redemption or see resources that are available. And so we want to provide as many resources as we're able to as a church to help people walk through the painful reality that they may be living. We do have resources. Even I was thinking about this as we were talking, posted in the bathrooms to the Alpha Center. There are groups, help groups that people can connect to, or different resources in that way. If you've experienced abortion or if you've experienced abuse of some sort, there are resources to go to. We just ask that you reach out to one of the elders. We would want to hear from you and know that we could walk with you in this and walk toward resources that we know of.
I also know of people in our body who have said to me, they've shared their experience and they've said, I would love to walk with someone who's experiencing something similar. And so, the verse that says God comforts us in our affliction, so we in turn can comfort others. And so it's doubtful to me that there's anybody in the church who has done or experienced something that there's not somebody else in the church that can walk with them. Yeah. I think the enemy wants you to believe that you're alone, that you're isolated, that you're the only one who's either done this or experienced this, and that there's shame, and so you can't share it. And that's a lie from the enemy. And so, if there's something that has hit you or that has happened to you, or that you have maybe sinned against someone, don't keep it in the dark, because there's not freedom in the darkness. And yet there are a lot of people in our body who have walked these roads before you and are willing to walk with you into light.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you, guys. We are going to go to the last question.
Just to please Eric.
For no other reason. But in the midst of some pretty heavy chapters, how are your affections still raised for God?
That's a hard one in these chapters. I remember a couple weeks ago, I said, this is hard because there's nothing that stirs my affection for God in this, because it's such a heavy, hard, dark set of chapters. And so, I could land on, I see that God is faithful and that he continues to bring people into David's life to bring conviction. I don't know if that stirs my affection as much as I can give the pat, like Sunday school answer of finding something that points to God, but my emotions, my affections are not actually stirred, because it's a hard, confusing set of chapters that are really painful, and kind of leave you in this place of, man, I'm glad I know the Redeemer that came so that I can at least see that redemption. So maybe that's what it is that I can see more of the story than what they saw here, and see God's faithfulness in that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I hear what you're saying, and I think for me, it's not a looking at this passage, but it's looking at what this passage is a shadow of. And so a couple of the shadows that I see, one of them is David's being a father to these boys and what that looks like in his failures, and even in the very last verse of chapter 14, that he does receive Absalom back and he kisses him. There's a reception there. But even that is just a shadow of the loving father who does not reject, but welcomes me in as a son. So I think I have to look at not necessarily the passage, but what the passage is a shadow of, to see where my affections are stirred for God. Austin?
Yeah, I agree with Kirsten. If I had to find a Sunday school answer for this, it'd be something like, okay, well, thank goodness there's a chapter in the Bible that shows how horrible sin is to wake us up to that. But really, you read these chapters and I get mad and hate what's going on. And so really just the hope that one day all the pain on this earth, God's going to renew it, and at some point this will be redeemed and this won't happen anymore.
Yeah.
I think for me, a piece of it is the reminder that you brought in yesterday, Vince, just that vengeance does belong to the Lord, and that as we try to execute judgment, it only leads to more and more chaos and destruction and death, and just holding on to the fact that God himself has said that vengeance belongs to him, and just learning to sit in that and trust his perfect justice. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining this week. Next week we're doing chapters 15 and half of 16.
That's
until
right.
Verse 14.
Yeah, 16, 14. So the unfortunately the sun shining doesn't get brighter. It continues to be dark. So so stay with us. Thank you all.
Thank you. See you next time.